What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're happy to introduce Lucron. You might have seen some of his recent work as it's blown up on YouTube. 15-year WoW vet, checking out Final Fantasy. Lucron, thanks for coming and talking with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I love your little black mage minion. I thought that was, as a black mage, somebody who really loves black mages, I was like, yes, I can immediately identify with this guy.
That's
Go
the
ahead.
story about behind that black mage thing. It's kind of weird. That was literally a last minute thing for me deciding what to do. I got the whole recording of that thing done beforehand, and
Oh,
I
yeah?
had no idea how I was gonna like present it at all. I just got the script written down, and I just said the things. I was like, how am I gonna present this? Am I gonna have a speaker? If I use my character as a speaker, that's not gonna look right because my character's a female, and as Asmongold very adamantly pointed out. So I was like, what can I use? And I was like, I'll just sit next to this bed with the black mage minion on there and just stare at him for a little bit until he does this little celebration thing. Uh, so that's pretty much the whole story of that. I was like, maybe I should probably switch it up. So I end up traveling the entire world looking for spots where I could just sit down and stare at the guy until he does this little dance thing. So if you notice throughout the video, he's like pretty much all throughout the entire world before Shadowbringers, because I wasn't up to that point then. And oddly enough, I don't even have a thaumaturge, which is
Oh,
kind of
that's,
fun.
I like
That
that. That's great.
Yeah, and the reason I chose Black Mage is because the character I mained in World of Warcraft was a warlock,
Nice.
and my warlock's transmog had the hat and a mask thing, and you could only see his eyes. And I was like, that's the same thing with the Black Mage minion there. So I was like, I'll just stick with that. That works.
So
And
yeah, so we're like you left WoW, but WoW hasn't left you to a degree. In this case,
yes.
yeah, absolutely. So guys, if you guys haven't seen Lucron's videos, I will include a link to his channel. Be sure to go give him a follow. Check out his, not his Twitch, his Twitter as well. Are you on Twitch?
I technically have one, but I never stream.
All right. Well, don't check out his Twitch until he's ready to commit to
Yeah.
a real streaming schedule. Lucron, there's so much that I have questions for you. I want to toss over to Chris because Chris is my WoW guy. I've even joked that I plan on, because I'm going to be playing, I'm going to be playing pre-patch into Shadowlands because they're adding controller support. I'm one of those weird people who like, oh, it's people like keyboard and mouse. I'm like, it makes it feel more like work if I'm on a keyboard and mouse because I live on a keyboard and mouse all day. So control that, like, just so you maybe have never heard that, controller is my litmus test. Hey, WoW's adding it as an official thing. I'm gonna go check it out. So I've even been joking like 17 Final Fantasy Online, veteran checks out WoW. Just kind of like I was like, oh man, maybe Lucron will react to that. I don't know. Chris, like I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit of World of Warcraft as we go into Shadowlands. Lucron was telling us some stuff prior to us actually hitting record. I think it was starting to become such an interesting conversation. I want to try and recreate it here for just a little bit before we explore more into the world of Final Fantasy.
Okay. Yeah. So we were just kind of chatting with each other about where we're coming from, and just like WoW has a lot of weird connotations with it. Like on one hand, we were talking about, it is this like Fonz defining game, and so it's this thing that when I meet somebody else that's played a lot of World of Warcraft, there's a different bond there than even running into people who've simply tried it or been in and out every other expansion. People who have played multiple expansions back to back and have gone through phases where maybe they loved the game and maybe the game was just fine. There is a bond there, and like I've met people at parties and gotten along with that. So like I could already feel Lucron and I getting along there. But then there's also this, like, you were talking about how you're not following Shadowlands, right? This desire to just kind of like cut the cord.
Yeah.
And I would say that like that's also something I relate to, because I don't like, there is at the very same time there's almost this shame, almost like admitting it was like an addiction. Like World of Warcraft, I played it more passionately than I've played any other game in my life. It just took over to an unhealthy degree. I don't know for you, but like when I was raiding and I was changing servers to be like, I was following a friend who was part of like the elitist jerks crowd or whatever, and like you get so immersed in, everybody feels that they were part of the guild. Like everybody remembers their guild, and it's like, oh man. And then you talk to somebody else, it's like, yeah, I've never heard of you. And like it just feels like it means so much. And
Yeah.
when I was dating my wife, she said like, you know, is there anything like I need to know about you? And I was like, well, I'm a gamer. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, all guys play video games. And I was like, yeah, I don't mean like we were drinking some beer and now there's Call of Duty. I mean like a serious, I need to warn you about this gamer. And she's like, that's just being polite. Like he's just trying to like, oh, my worst quality is that I work too hard. And it's like, no, like I'm trying to tell you something. And then now we've been married 8 years. We were engaged for a while. We dated for a while. And so we've known each other a long time now. And every once in a while, she's just like, God, I wish you'd told me.
Oh my God.
I was like, I did tell you. She's like, I thought you were making it up. And I was like, no, like I own like 11 video game consoles. I spend thousands of dollars on dorky hobbies. It's a problem that I'm not looking to fix. And so she asked me, but her definition, and this is one of those things where that shame with World of Warcraft comes from, is like the news media had done such a good job of saying like World of Warcraft is like
Absolutely.
single-handedly why people are losing their jobs and getting divorces and falling into homelessness. I was like, they're not falling into homelessness, they need an internet connection. But
Yeah.
like, she said like, do you play World of Warcraft? But like I had just quit at the end of Pandaria and we were dating during WoD, and I was like you, I was like, I'm not coming back. And so like I hadn't had an active subscription in like 4.5 months. And so I was like, no, I don't play World of Warcraft. What are you talking about?
I know exactly what you mean with that. But yeah, like not just news outlets, but like even just parodies and just people, just the
It's
overall
so bad.
community. Yeah, especially like South Park. You got that just that one guy, like the
Don't tell
elitist
your
guy.
coworkers you play WoW because they'll picture you just eating Hot Pockets at home.
Yeah, just like sitting there, yeah, just gonna get all that.
We're gonna stay in the forest, kill the boars.
Sword of 1,000 truths is mine.
Dude, that episode was so awesome to this day.
It's so good.
I know. The whole RP
So
with
good. It was a
yeah,
season premiere, right? It was a bold way to come out of the gate for that season.
right. But yeah, I had the same experience where there's any type of thing like relating to video games or WoW in specific in particular, because like I'm gonna face it, the only game I have any real experience with is WoW. Because I remember Asmongold saying that WoW players aren't gamers, they're just WoW players or something like that.
No, I completely get it. Like I was actually like, so WoW was playing. I tried it, like I touched it, and I was like, keyboard and mouse. I can't do it. I went back to playing Final Fantasy XI, and this was years ago. I kept trying to get people to come play Final Fantasy XI with me unsuccessfully. That's actually personally why I'm slightly jealous of Ninja and his brother Chris, because they all played 11 together, and I'm like, I how the hell did? Because I kept like Brandon, my brother's Brandon. I was like, dude, I'll pay your sub, dude. I'll like just come play. I need people to play this game with. It's so freaking hard. But anyway, long story short. But yeah, and so I heard Asmongold say that very thing, and then it resonated because I was actually like starting out working. I was working in like at the college, help desk and stuff, and there would be people that it's like, no, I've never played games, but I play WoW all the time. Like WoW was their first video game they have ever played, and they never played another one. They just stuck with that.
Interesting.
Anyway.
I mean, it's true of anybody that just plays one game, right? Like to be a gamer,
Yeah.
you have to have some awareness of like gamer culture to identify across the whole. So like if you're just that one game, like I know a lot of speedrunners and stuff will admit this stuff, that like they don't follow the current console race. They're not aware of what the current MMOs are out there. They're not aware of the recent controversy with Creator X or Microtransaction Y. Like they don't follow any of that because their tunnel is just really narrow and they can just stay in their lane.
Yes.
The moment you start to add a second game, a third game, a fourth game, you add seasonal games, you're playing single player games that like they'll end and you'll have to go out and look for another one. Then you start to follow, there's this whole community that you can be a part of where there are like, I guess news outlets per se, but like their biggest controversy is still gaming, which I love because like it's just not as much at stake as about like hearing about tragedy halfway around the world or currently like the whole world. So like it is its own almost society in a way, and there's there's kind of battles within it, and there's all this drama. And WoW is just one of those chambers. Like, it's not all of gaming.
Yeah. So it was quite a bit of a change going from WoW to Final Fantasy XIV. I was like, oh gosh, like what am
Was
I
there
to
a gap?
expect?
You think they're that different?
Was what do you mean my gap? You like a gap
Meaning,
between me?
yeah, like because before the show you said that you did feel a little shame having spent 15 years in WoW, and I'm wondering if basically you were like, all right, that's it, I'm done with WoW, and then a month later your buds are like, come play 14 or something like that,
Or if it was like a month for a different RPG,
right? Or if it was like, because like when I've left like jobs in the past, which doesn't happen often. Usually I'm 7 years, and then it's like, okay, it's time to change. I usually take about a month, 2 months off just to heal, because like I think, you know, and I think Chris even has explained this to me. It's like workaholics are the only addiction that we applaud.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
way to work like yourself to death. Here's more money. Oh, well then I'll keep doing this. You know, like I was talking to my wife about that this morning, but I was saying, like, did you take was there any kind of like healing moment of like, oh, I'm just not going to play a game today. I'm just gonna enjoy like catching up on like everything I've missed over the last 15 years, or was it like, hey, I'm still playing WoW, I'm really not having fun, and then your friends are like, dude, just install 14? Like, what was that experience?
Basically, well, when I was leaving WoW, I had like a guild that I was like really like close with. I really loved my time with the guild, and it was kind of like painful for me to even leave because, like, you know, the group of friends. But I felt like I needed to get away from WoW because I felt like it was getting too much. But so I ended up leaving doing that, and I started trying to look into some other things that I've been wanting to get good at, which I never successfully did in the past. I've tried several times, such as a 3D animation, 3D modeling. Both of them I'm terribly horrendous at. Music composition as well. I still dabble with that a little bit. I'm still just as slow with that as I was during last year when I was trying to upload, where I uploaded 2 videos that year. But ultimately I felt like just my overall life direction wasn't really going too great. So there was some downtime. After what, it was like a couple months. It was a couple months after I quit WoW is when my friend said, hey, we play Final Fantasy XIV, you should play it. And I have very adamant friends who would, not adamant, but they're like, they poke you really hard and very persistently over and over. And but this time around, they didn't really need to convince me, because one of the few games I have played outside of WoW was Nier Automata. And I heard that crossover was a thing. And so far, the only piece of content that I'm aware of before starting Final Fantasy XIV was the Nier raid being a thing. So I jumped into that, and you probably noticed my main character probably has a eerily similar overall look, and you would be accurate in assuming that it is a attempted copycat of a thing. But I jumped into that with them, and I was not intending to switch my channel from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV, because I thought this game was going to be a short thing, just a little short thing. I didn't plan to actually be here long, because they actually had me try out Black Desert Online, and I didn't play very much of it because I was like, it's like really fancy. Yeah, it's got a lot of like good graphics, great looks, the best character customizer I've seen. But I just didn't really play a whole lot into it because I guess it just didn't click with me then. But with the Final Fantasy XIV, I thought it was going to be a similar situation. That was back in May.
And here we are.
And then I was still playing around like August, and I was like, okay, it's been like I have like a month of logged in time right now, and I'm not done with the main story quest. There's a lot of things in this game. I feel like I should just say something about it. Maybe I'll just try Final Fantasy XIV content, because beforehand I was trying playing some other side indie games that I play, like Transistor and Fury and whatnot, which are the only, and Origami, those 3 little indie games. All of them, Origami was the most successful out of the 3 of them, being 200 views because it was my comeback. And then the other ones after that, like the Transistor at a Glance, was 100 something views, and I put a lot of effort in that one. And the effort I did into Transistor, the Transistor video, is the direct experience that applied to my Final Fantasy XIV first impressions. So I trained. I basically trained for this video. uh, so then I ended up doing the Final Fantasy XIV one. I was actually expecting maybe like 5,000 viewers since I'm tapping into a bigger audience, because the other games that I was playing, I realized weren't even really big on the overall internet community when they came out.
Right. I
And
call those like passion videos. Like there's times where
Yeah.
I'll pour myself into a video because I want to, and it's like I know this is not gonna, like, no one's
Yeah.
gonna, no one but me cares about this outside of like a handful within the community that's interested, and they're like, oh, that was a really great video, and then it's like, you know, you spend that, and then like there's been times where I just get up and it's like, oh man, like what's happening? Hey guys, you know, this thing's happening and I think it's bad. I'll keep you up to date, and it's I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
is the message they're sending me, Brian, we really like you, at 5 a.m. without coffee, talking about the horribleness of certain video game decisions? It's like, oh guys, like, well, all right, you know. So anyway, yeah, I've had those passion projects where I'm just like, I pour myself into it and it's like, it just dies. And I'm like, well, I'm proud of that video. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I'm just like, I'm glad I made that, but yeah, I obviously did not make that for for anybody but me. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So like, I tried starting the YouTube thing in the very end of Warlords of Draenor, and then I started kicking these up in Legion, just playing casual battlegrounds and just doing edits on it. And it was a really very gradual improvement, quote unquote, in overall editing fidelity. But it took me a good minute to get to the amount of like editing prowess, I say with air quotes, that I got now. And the usual view amount that I'm used to having is between 1,000 and 5,000, because I played a niche within a niche within a niche. I played Demonology, Warlock, in Legion and Battle for Azeroth, and almost no one plays that for anything. And so I was like one of like, what, 2-3 people who actually made content. One of them was almost specifically forums. The other one only played it casually. I was the only one who actually kept like making quote unquote consistent videos about Demonology Warlock, especially in PvP, because people have a really rough problem playing that thing in the in PvP. But I managed to get a decent workaround with it. Speaking of which, no one played really the Demonology Warlock in general. I almost never saw another Demonology Warlock ever. So that also worked in my favor, because no one knew how to fight me, because there's so few Demonology Warlocks.
It wasn't like, oh, we've seen this build. That's one of the things that's always kind of fun about metas, and when you break them, is that people generally are like, this is how it is, this is how it is, and then somebody comes along and it's like, but what if it was this way? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's better, and then that is how it is, that is how it is. But yeah, if you're doing something that's really cool, especially because like, as that's what I dabbled in, and that's what Chris has recommended for me to create. And I don't know about the demonology piece of it. Like, I'm completely ignorant of WoW and their trees and all that stuff, but I'm looking forward to kind of getting, you know, and like, I like pet classes, so when you're like, I was like, oh cool, Warlock, yes, I remember that.
Yes.
I had a tank monster or something like that that was pretty cool.
Good old Voidwalker, that giant blueberry.
Exactly.
But yeah, back to the YouTube thing. Yeah, roughly 1,000 to 5,000. I had a few videos. Like the first video I made was like, well, in Legion was 50,000 views, and that was one I really didn't want people to see. And then there was the other one that got around like 50,000 views as well, and it was another one I didn't want people to see. It was just like,
if you didn't want to see it, why you said it to public?
I mean, I didn't want to be super like, I didn't want that one to be over the other ones because it was just to like keep up a schedule, because I was actually uploading normally, unlike I am now.
Yeah.
But after a little bit of that, had some falling out and whatnot from the YouTube stuff, because real life stuff was conflicting. I wasn't able to juggle the two. And then I was just exclusively playing WoW, and I was just like, okay, it's starting not to affect real life very well, so I stopped with that. And then a bunch of other changes happened in my life, and now I'm starting to see if I can do this YouTube thing like gong ho all the way if I can. don't know where to go with that. I was going on a tangent and I kind of derailed myself.
I liked it. I thought you shared a lot of interesting insight. Now, Chris actually asked a question. We both asked like a question at the same time, and you took mine. So, Chris, you basically asked, do you feel like WoW, there's like a similarity between WoW and 14, or that do you feel like these two are? Oh, Chris, you're muted for some reason. Chris, you're still muted. There we go.
People, they're mowing the yard next door, so I muted myself. So
they like to do that whenever we record.
I was playing. Yeah, they wait. Like I can record in the middle of the day. I can record in the evening. They wait. So my wife, when I told her I didn't play WoW, like I was already subscribed to 14, and so like in my mind, like I was not lying to this person I was dating. But I knew that she wasn't asking the question she intended, and I didn't correct her.
Yeah.
Like, no, you asked me if I was playing WoW. I don't play WoW. I get $15 a month to this other game that I can dump an unlimited number of hours in that you'll have no interest in. Like it's totally different. I mean, they have raids, and you know, I'm being a part of that, and I'm involved in leveling, and I have to get online every day to check my market board, and I'm leveling some alts right now, and I have some goals in game that I want to hit by certain days that you don't care about. But it's totally different. So like, I understand that within our sphere, within our gaming culture, like we see the differences, right? Because we're in it. And so like these fine little details, things like the length of a global cooldown, how much voice acting there is, how deep the story is, what the questing style is, how hard the combat is. These things matter to us because we're in it for hours and hours and hours on end. So a small change to a class can just rock our worlds. They broke my job. It's this huge deal. But to like everybody outside of that circle, everybody who plays other games or in this case doesn't really play games, as I talk about my wife, where like she plays some games on Switch, she plays some games on mobile. She'll kind of dabble in like she'll play a little bit of a shooter, kind of like Brian's wife, but like it's not her thing. These games are identical. And so like, how do you feel? Where does that put you on that spectrum? Like how different do you think 14 is as you're like learning all these systems, but you have such a backlog of WoW knowledge?
Well, Final Fantasy XIV at the beginning, I don't know if I can say it's slower or not. The GCD though does really attribute to that. But I remember back when I was leveling, but then again, that was back in vanilla. Back when I was leveling, it was just like one ability over and over, two abilities, maybe three, or just over and over. So it's not really different. It's just the global cooldown is a bit longer in this game. But the further you went in, I would even argue that the rotations or whatnot you're gonna pull off at like higher levels. I'm not even at end game yet. Is like way more complicated because the way you off global cooldowns are implemented in this game. Because and while all of your DPS abilities are the global cooldown, which is why it's so short. So you can just but you still have to wait between every single ability you use. Well, with all of these off global cooldowns that you get available to you later on in the game, with all these jobs, you're pretty much always pressing something, despite that global cooldown being like over twice as long as WoW's. Mm-hmm. With all these off global cooldowns, you have to weave in between all these abilities. I want to say it makes it way more complicated and probably more fast-paced, if I'm gonna be honest. It does.
I want to jump in because, like, from a new player experience, do you feel like that stuff should be introduced sooner? Chris and I did a video recently on the new player experience, and it's when I think on it, because you're absolutely right, and I find that very fun. But then having gone and played at the earlier levels, it's like I know that it gets better. A lot of people who stick around with it know that it gets better. Do you feel like they should start that should shift a little bit earlier as a part of that experience, so you're not just kind of like one Mississippi, two Mississippi skill?
Yes, I do agree that they should be introducing off global cooldowns earlier because, but maybe not super game changing ones, but at least introduce the idea of it because. Not only is A Realm Reborn also trying to stick very safely to the whole like RPG like rags to riches formula, a little bit too strictly if you ask me. But they also hide a bunch of those, not hide, but they keep all those like more advanced abilities to like level 50 something or past the Realm Reborn. Because it definitely feels like A Realm Reborn didn't have as many of those advanced features from what I'm gathering from it. and all these cool features that I'm seeing. Like my friend who I was leveling with, they play a black mage, and when they got to, what was it, like 72 or 74 or something, they said their entire rotation felt like they needed to change up a bit just to optimize what they now had. So that 1 or 2 abilities they got changed the entirety of how they play the role.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, just 1 or 2 abilities just changed the entire thing. So it's kind of neat from a leveling experience, because you end up going through like this process of changes, and you see that there's very few abilities, especially from 70 to 80. Like, what was it? My red mage only had 2 abilities that gets added. Yeah. But seeing that you own that 1 ability and actually getting it, and you realize that kind of flips the entirety of what you already have on its head a bit. That's very interesting, because I'm used to the whole like the more the merrier type of thing, where you have like these talent trees, especially the olden days where you had like all these different things you can choose from. I thought that was like really like freaking amazing to go for, and people will still argue that that's the best thing to go for, but I know it's really hard to balance. But when it comes to having 1 ability change so much about your original rotation, that intrigues me, and also makes me lament that A Realm Reborn is as, basic as it is, because first impressions are a really big factor when it comes to the negotiating table, and trying to get people into A Realm Reborn, especially from WoW. It's kind of rough. And there's also the story-driven narrative perspective, because I kind of want to talk about that too, because in World of Warcraft, everyone's a genocidal maniac in World of Warcraft. Like, every quest you get is like, kill 10 of these, kill 15 of these, kill 20 of these. Ever started the Death Knight quest chain? Yeah, kill 150 civilians with a giant dragon. Eat them, do whatever. So you're really desensitized to absolute violence and genocide. Whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, they kind of keep slaying rolls to a minimum. Like, some of the things that you got when you had to go out and go kill certain monsters, it's only like 3 or 5 of them. Like, you don't go off killing off an entire town or city or civilization, like especially the Death Knight starting area quest. And everything seems to be a lot more personal and down to earth and more like talking. And I feel like the WoW audience got so used to the hardcore edginess of it, because if you imagine what you're actually doing in real life, like, you're a Death Knight holding diseases, and and specifically I keep freaking bringing up the Death Knight quest line, because oh my lord, if you actually think about what you're doing, you're
so to defend WoW a little bit for anybody here that's never played WoW, the Death Knight storyline, the Death Knight is a hero class, so it's not a typical intro.
Yeah, so basically they're the anti-paladin, where the paladin is a warrior of justice.
But they don't start at level 1. They're not meant to be they weren't originally introduced as a new player class.
Yes, you have to reach level 55 or 60 on another character on the same server before you can make a Death Knight. And the Death Knight starts at level 55. And so they're starting off like pretty close to maximum level in like vanilla times.
Right.
But during Wrath of the Lich King, it was like Wrath of the Lich King's max level was 80. So it's skipping a whole bunch of stuff just to get them closer to getting to that content. But you pretty much start off being a warrior underneath the Lich King. And the Lich King is wanting to take out his enemy, which is the Scarlet Dawn Crusade. I think it was Scarlet Crusade, which are these people who are very strongly religious against undead or anything that is unholy, to the point of strong fanaticism. But in this case, it's a good thing that they're fighting the Lich King. The Lich King is trying to like annihilate all life. Well, not annihilate all life, but he's trying to take over the place with undead. So you're basically a warrior, a necromancer warrior person, and you're given a bunch of different orders to just kill as many people as you can. And even one quest gives you 2 heated pokers that you're supposed to kill people slowly with, like just auto attack them and burn information out of them until they can't take it anymore. And being the ruthless son of a gun you are, like, no one survives. No one survives. But going from that to Final Fantasy XIV, everything's more personable. And when people die, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not used to this. People are dying. And in World of Warcraft, it's like, let's drop a nuke over in Theramore. That's pretty cool.
What did you think about the whole like and for some reason I'm saying my mind keeps saying tethering, tempering. There we go. I was like, why am I thinking tether? With the whole like with the different icons, with the different summons, in which that when somebody gets, because you bring that up and talking about death, it's like I thought it was pretty shocking that it's like, oh, they've been tempered by Ifrit. Well, what are we gonna do? Oh, we're gonna kill them. There's no cure for tempering.
That is true. Yeah, the whole tempering thing, and well, it kind of didn't help that the first impression of the people who were like afflicted by it were kind of
jerks.
Well, one particular, yeah. So that didn't really quite help with the whole empathy side of things. And coming from WoW, that's a normal thing. I was like, oh, okay. so yeah, we'll just talk about. But the further I go in Final Fantasy XIV, the more untempered I am with the whole what am I trying to say? The more unused to death that I become from like the World of Warcraft stuff, because like almost every quest, like not even just Death Knight anymore, just any quest you get, there's a bunch of just like kill like 10 of these, 15 of these, 10 of these, like almost every quest is like that. And so coming from just all of that, and the more I go through Final Fantasy XIV and the more personable you get with these people, and there's something about Japanese developers where they just really are good at humanizing everyone, not just the main character, but side characters, NPCs, and everything. The way they just humanize them, and you can get more of a personal touch to them, and how just everything is very relatable with just about everyone. It kind of makes you grip onto life a bit more, and makes you want people not to have to go through death and whatnot. So I ended up getting a bit more of a empathetic heart in a sense, going through Final Fantasy XIV. And yeah, that's about what I want to say there.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, cool. Well, I don't know how to transition from that. That got a lot deeper than the original question. So interesting. Well, it's been great to get to meet you. As you kind of, where are you at in your Final Fantasy experience right now? Like how far along? I know when your video first came out, you definitely hadn't made it to current content.
So I'm still not on current content technically. The last MSQ thing I did was the very first level 71 quest in Shadowbringers.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. So you are now this. If
Dude, this freaking expansion doesn't pull any punches. There's so much I want to talk about already. But
so on that note, though, like what I would love to do is that when you do get caught up on the story, I'd love to get you back. Maybe we'll actually do it. This is a full podcast. We try to keep these at 20 minutes. We're at 30. But it's such a fun conversation, and I'm like, oh, let's just keep going. But I'd love to sit back and actually get that experience. If you're if you're available, we can get you back. As like now that you're now into Shadowbringers, I cannot wait to see what your impression of, because there's things that you've said that I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to hear his thoughts on the villain and on the different characters and just the different theories that people have within the game itself. Oh, be afraid, but also be excited. No, like I mean, obviously, feel free to make a video, but like on your experience, and I hope you do, because one of the things I really do appreciate about your content, I was like, I love the humor, I love the pacing and the editing. So I'm glad that you got practice on other things before you're coming in and start making 14 content. So I thank you for taking time out of your morning this morning to come sit down and talk to us and introduce for allow us to get to hopefully know you a little bit better. And guys, for those watching, be sure again, hit the links in the description, check out his channel, check out his content, cheer him on as he battles his way through Shadowbringers. Lucron, is there any thoughts, anything you want to kind of wrap up with before we wrap up this video? I don't want to be like, and we're out, and you're like, oh, I was wanting to say one more thing.
Well, a bunch of it is spoiler related, and I'd rather not litter this thing with spoilers. So
yeah, like it's always like, as people have come into the channel, like they come in at different parts, and it's like, oh, let's talk about, and they're like, no. It's like, nah.
Yeah, so I don't intend this to be a very spoiler heavy video, so I think that's just about all for now. I'm pretty sure I'll have a lot more to say like later, but at this current moment in time, can't really say a whole lot more I'd like to add.
All right, well, great, guys. Again, follow Lucron, links in the description. Chris, Lucron, thank you guys for being a part of this awesome discussion. We've got another video that Chris and I are going to go film that's actually going to go up today. This should be up on Wednesday, so hopefully you all enjoyed. And if there's any other questions that you have for Lucron, you can go ask him on his channel, or we'll also get him back here for a future podcast as he wraps up his journey through Shadowbringer. So again, for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
It's Chris.
Thanks so much for... Oh, go ahead.
The name's Lucron.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. It's a different kind of format that we've been doing, and so it's like, we're still figuring it out ourselves. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, and share button, and share it out on social media so we can just keep having more conversations like this. Anyway, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Take care. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.